I'd like to introduce Mark Matuszka from Glow Digital and Michael Stretton, and here we go.
Beauty, fantastic. Hello everyone. Oh, g'day. Well, it's a pleasure to be opening the first session for Drupal Down Under 2012. We were really encouraged to hear that the whole place is sold out. Fantastic. I don't think Brian mentioned that before. 250 delegates and tickets sales are closed. How good is that? Fantastic. So, and I believe there'll be an announcement a little bit later on about next year. Okay, so it's my pleasure to, in a moment, I'm really going to be doing a largely sort of introductory role here. We put down the session in joint name sort of at the beginning, and it turned a bit more technical, and I turned to Michael over here, who I'll introduce in a minute. But my name is Mark Matuszka. I'm Managing Director of Glow Digital up in Brisbane. Been in IT for a long time, often you think too long, but obviously enjoy it because I'm still doing it. Worked with Drupal for a little while, and I'm a former tech head, which is why I'll be handing the reins over to Michael in a minute. Now, we're here to talk about views. There are a couple of views proposals, and the one that you would have typically seen in the past, sorry, I'm in the way there for you, am I? Would have been probably mostly using Views UI. As we know, Views is the second most used module, used by an astounding 378,258 sites as of January 1st, which is an incredible percentage of Drupal core at 563. So Views is actually the second, well, it's really the first most used contrib module, which is absolutely incredible. And I was was great to see a picture before in Dimitri's presentation of Earl Miles, the author of Views and a couple of other fantastic modules. As I said, most of the uses of Views are really what I would call non-technical. Mostly people use Views UI to actually go in and basically just point and click and change things, select node types to be displayed. They're displayed they're accessible via a URL, a little bit of theming, and you're pretty much done. This session isn't about that at all. This is all about showing you a few little bits and pieces of the insides of views that you can use for probably a low percentage of cases. So if you're in, this is actually listed as an advanced session. So if you misread the program, I can tell you there'll be a fair bit of code actually displayed here, mostly little tiny snippets, as is usually the case. You can achieve a lot with a very little bit of code. Michael will be showing you a little bits of code, and it's all about showing you just bits and pieces of code used for certain purposes. Now, if you're a non-technical person, there's still going to be some useful things and tips for you here. My role these days is largely sort of e-business and strategy, and also scoping projects, and I need to know what Views can actually do and how big an effort it's going to take from my programmers. So a couple of examples of the thing that Michael's going to show are things like being able to set the number of nodes, giving your users the capability, and I'm talking end users, to be able to select the number of nodes on a page without giving them access to Views UI, where they can get into a lot of trouble. And another example would be contextual filters, where we want to be able to search not on just one field. It's very easy to actually define a filter and then basically do a search based on a field, but can you search on more than one field, for example? Well, the answer is yes, and it's very easy to set up with a little bit of code. So there's still things for the non-technical people. Bit of a disclaimer, like I said, this session is really to talk about the features of Views that you wouldn't use every day. And there are many, many ways to do, as you know, any given task. And this is just a few examples, so it's not the be-all and end-all. And there may well be different approaches to suit your circumstances. But we've found, yeah, I guess most of the things we'll be talking about are things that we've actually found useful in certain circumstances. So it's my pleasure to, in a minute, be able to hand over to Michael Strellan, our Drupal strategist and senior developer at Glow Digital. He's worked with Drupal for a few years now, actually probably about the same amount of years as Dimitri, interestingly enough. Michael is a real asset for us. He has a passion for creating high-quality, accessible, standards-compliant Drupal websites with high usability. He is a tech head, and so he'll be talking about a bit of code, and it's my pleasure. And could you please welcome Michael Strelin.
Hi everyone. Can I just get a show of hands? Who's built a Drupal website using views before? Probably better. Who's built a Drupal website and not used views? Anybody? A couple of people? Why? Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 different things. I'm going to give you a walkthrough of the views execution process and introduce all the hooks that are available on the way. Has everyone built a Drupal module or played around with Drupal development? I guess show of hands. Module development, I should say. So most people. Then I'm going to move on to creating your own views plugin, and kind of a new feature is using a view as a form. So there's going to be an opportunity for questions after each section, but if you want to interrupt as well, that's okay. Okay, so if you have a view with a page display, which is your typical use for a view, it calls a function called views page, and that does 2 things. It loads the view object from the database using CTools, and does a bunch of other stuff there that we're not really interested in, and then it calls views.executeDisplay. And that does a whole lot more. So I sort of drew a diagram of that, which you obviously can't see very well there. I've got another version of it there, which I'll zoom in on. And there are a few phases that it goes through. It starts off with the pre-execute phase, which it just sort of gathers information about the view, what arguments there are, and it gives you your first opportunity to hook into it with hook views preview. The next phase is view.build, which just starts generating the query and, that it's going to query the database with, and that's where we get our next hook, which is pre-build. We have a few other hooks down here. Then we have the execute phase, which is where it actually does the database query and gets results. And then the render phase, and then finally it does some cleaning up in the post-execute phase. So I'm sort of going to go through those a bit at a time. Okay, so the hooks that we saw were preview, pre and post build, pre and post execute, pre and post render, and query alter. For a demo, I've set up a website with a content type called artwork, which is just an artist, an image, a description, and a price. And I've created a view with 2 different page displays, a teaser list and a grid of fields. And then I've also got a block displaying featured artwork. So that looks something like this. So this is your basic teaser view. Everyone's seen basic standard node teaser view. You can get it with the views wizard these days. And I've also just created this little settings page here, which is going to allow me to toggle any of my hooks on and off. Okay, so the first hook that we've got is hook views preview. So basically all we've done is loaded information about the view from the database, but we haven't started building the query, or we don't care about any of the theming or anything there. So you can use this hook to change, dynamically change what the view is going to do. So if it's going to load the teaser page display, and for some reason you don't want it to do that under certain conditions, you can change it to view the grid display, or you could adjust the number of items per page dynamically. As Mark sort of mentioned before, this can be useful if you want to provide like a settings page for your end users to go and change configuration, like a set of configuration that you determine without them messing up your views, which can be quite painful sometimes, as I'm sure some of you know. Often there'll be alternatives to using this hook, like for example, not loading the display you don't want to load in the first place, but it can actually be useful. So, as a demo, if I change the artwork, can you see that? Oh, not really. It doesn't go left. It's the wrong resolution or something. No, I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so if I change it to this other setting that I've added in called the grid and hit save, close the little overlay, this page should reload with my grid display. Now, if you just edit the view, you can just see that there's two different displays. Has everyone created different displays in a view before? So you can have your page, your block, or you can have multiple pages. So that's all that's doing. So to do that, all you need to do is hook into hook views preview. Hook views preview. Do a bunch of if statements and check your settings. And the main work there is done is saying view.displayHandler, view.setDisplay, and then the name of your new display. And that means when views goes back into its execution process, it's not going to try and load the teaser display anymore. It's going to load the grid display. You could also, change the number of items per page or change sort order or anything like that. The next thing we might want to do, let me just close this, is this block over here, which you can't see. That's so annoying. Is showing featured artwork. So has everyone used the flag module before? Yeah, sort of. Flag module basically allows you to define flags that you can use on nodes or on users or on whatever else, just to toggle different, whatever you want to call it. So this one I've called featured. And so this is just a view of featured artworks. And I'm using that same block on an actual artwork itself with an argument, so it's showing only artwork from that artist. But the problem is, because I'm sharing that same block as from the front page, it's only showing featured items, and I want to show all items, not just featured items. So when we come to the next hook, which is hook views pre-build, we know about the arguments that the view is loading. So the argument is the artist of that particular artwork we're viewing. And we're about to start building the database query. So here's an ideal time to remove that relationship with the flag module. So instead of showing featured artwork, we can show all the artwork. Or you could do anything else that's going to affect the query. So basically all I'm doing here is a bunch of if statements to make sure I'm viewing the right view. And then when I come down to this view.argument, so if the argument is set, I can remove the relationship with the flag module. And so that basically just turns an inner join into an outer join. So if I edit my settings and turn that hook on, I should, instead of seeing 3 artworks over here, I should be able to see a few more from that same artist. So that's no longer the featured artwork block. Okay, so that's preview is covered. Build, we've done pre-build, and so the next thing that we do is build the query, and then we run into a few sort of less useful hooks. So we've got hook views query alter. In this way, we can actually directly modify the query that's built by views. I haven't really been able to find a good example of anyone doing this that's not a hack, because most of the times it's just someone couldn't figure out how to use Views UI to achieve what they wanted to, so they just alter the query directly. I remember, I think it was when Views 3 was still in beta or alpha or something, there was an issue that I had with group by, and it wasn't working properly, but I was able to go into hook views query alter and add a group by statement myself. So that's sort of like, you want to try and avoid using that, I think, but you can use it if you need to. The next one that happens after the query is built is post-build. And from what I've heard is that you can use it to sort of add database queries that are sort of specific to whichever database you're using. So Views uses ANSI SQL, but if you're using Postgres or MySQL or something and you want to modify the query with something specific to Postgres or MySQL, you could do that there. But once again, that's kind of hacky. So then, after the build phase, we sort of have our execute phase, which the first hook is pre-execute, but not much has really happened since post-build. So there's not much purpose to actually use that. And then the next thing we do is execute the query, which is where we get our query results. So in hook views post-execute, you might want to switch something to do with the rendering of the view based on the view results. For example, if you only pull one result from the database, or 1 to 5, you might want to display them as unformatted teasers. But if you pull 5 to 10 or 10 plus, it might be appropriate to use a grid or a table or something. And so there's an ideal time to dynamically change the view to do that. And the next one is hook views pre-render. And this is basically about altering the results before they're passed to the theme layer. Or you can attach HTML before or after the view. So one place we found that sort of useful is one of our clients wanted to have this little search string that shows you what you search for and how many results, some information about the results. So with view.attachment before, you can just add HTML. So in this, if we go back to the view, we're just saying your search returned 3 or 5 results. And all that does is call view.attachment before and add a string. But obviously you can get more complex examples like this one that you can see down below here. This one's actually kind of cool because you can click on these X's to remove those filters, but I don't have the example code for that. Then the next one is kind of interesting, is hook views post-render. So we've gone to the theming layer, we've generated all of our HTML for our view results, but we can include dynamic content while still having cached output in our view. So has everyone seen, I'm not sure if it's in the older versions of views, but you've actually got settings where you can determine what gets cached in the view for performance reasons. So you can set time-based caching on both the query result and the rendering, or the rendered output. So if we were to cache our rendered output for 6 days, and we had a blog view or something, and it said posted 24 minutes ago, and that's cached for 6 days, that's obviously going to be wrong. So what you could do is, instead of outputting posted 24 minutes ago in the first place, you can output a token, or a HTML comment's a good idea in case something goes wrong, it's hidden. But include the timestamp in that, and then you can use a PHP string replace or regular expression or whatever to just replace that one little bit, and then you don't have to repeat all the SQL queries that Views is going to do to repeatedly show the same thing. I've not actually used that before, but it sounds pretty cool. It would obviously be better under like more complex scenarios than just a blog with a timestamp on it. So does anyone have any questions on that sort of section? No? If you think of any, there's more time at the end.
Yeah, I think with respect to questions, Michael's presenting sort of 3 segments at the moment, and you can certainly ask questions after each of the segments, or if there's something quick, you can just ask it straight away and I'll run around to you. And I think we want to do questions through the microphone so that we get it on the video. Is that right? Yep. Great.
Okay. So who's created a Views plugin before? A few people? So there's a few different types of plugins. There's display handlers, which are your pages and your blocks and your feeds or your panel panes or all those sorts of things. Your style plugins, which is your grids, your tables, your lists, slideshow. And then you've got filters, fields, and arguments are all sort of similar. So they integrate with, like, whether you want to get the node title or one of the fields, or whether a node's published or when it was published or any of that. And then you have relationship handlers. So the Views module comes with a whole bunch of these pre-built, and then a lot of other modules provide their own. All your standard fields and stuff, they all plugins that come with Views. But we're going to build a custom filter handler. So this is going to allow us to create multiple exposed filters, but just have one form element to search all of them. So for example, if we wanted to search our view, we wanted to search by the author and by the title of it, or an or, actually, not an and, we can do this with this plugin that we've created. So this is based on a small module called Views Filters Populate, but there's only a Drupal 6 version of it, so we're porting it to Drupal 7 here. So the first thing to do when you create your info file and your module file, and the first thing you need to do is tell Views that to take an interest in your module, basically. So you implement Hook Views API, and basically you just return the Views version that you're using. So 2 or 3, or maybe 1 if you're really old school. Mostly going to be 3, and that just tells Views, if you're using Views 2, don't try and load a Views 3 plugin because it's not going to work, and etc. And then you can also tell it the path where all your files and your template path, where all your template files are. But for our case, our module's going to be really small, so I'm just going to leave it with returning the API version number. So they're really simple, return API 3. The next thing we do is tell Views that we're creating a filter named Populate Filters, and the name of the PHP class that handles this. There's a bunch of naming conventions for this. So this one's called Views Filters Populate Handler Filter. Typically, you use Hook Views data to tell Views about your database tables. But since we don't have our own database table for this, we're just sort of leeching off of other filters. We're making a global filter. So if you want to expose a database table to Views, you can view the documentation in views.api.php, which comes with the Views module. But I'm not going to go into that. So that basically looks like this. The main thing here is this filter. So we're saying it's a filter and it's handled by a filter with that name. And then the fun part is writing the actual filter handler. So you need to create a PHP class extending views handler filter. So a lot of the hard work's already done for you, and all you need to do is implement 6 functions. So the first one, it's probably best if I just demonstrate the filter first so you understand what's going on. Oh, I keep maximizing that, but you guys don't want it maximized. It looks good on my screen. So over here, this is just an exposed filter for the view, which it's searching the artist and the title field. Usually you'd have to have 2 separate fields for that. So to add a filter, we come into here. I've already added mine, but if you have a look for populate filters, there it is. A little help text, use other filters with the value of this filter. Not going to add it again because I've already got it, but I'll just also show you the settings for it. We can just, this is a list of other filters that this view uses, and we just choose which ones our new filter is going to filter. It's kind of confusing, but I've got title and artist checked. So basically, we tell views what options our plugin is going to make available, and the only option is an array called filters. Then we have to provide a form API element to toggle the options, basically. And so that was the list of checkboxes that I just showed you. And so all you're doing there is, has everyone used the form API before? A few people nodding their heads, so no one put up their hand, so I assume nobody. And then this one's kind of a boring one, but we're just telling views to provide a summary of the options that we've chose. So all I'm saying here is exposed, although I could probably list like the filters that are being included here. So like, for example, the published filter, it returns the word yes if it's published or no if it's not published. And then, okay. Then the next thing we need to do is provide a form element to actually use for the exposed filter. So over here we've got a text field. So again, that's using the form API, and all we're doing is returning some standard form API code. Oh, here we are. I've sort of condensed this down so it all fits on the slide, so it's not formatted very well, but type text field, title is value, and then the default value is whatever the options are set to. Or if someone's gone and actually entered in a filter, that'll populate automatically. Okay, so pre-query, what we're going to do here is take the value that someone's entered into our form element and apply that to all the other filters that we've enabled with our options. So basically, if the filter is an exposed filter, we're going to get the input of it, and then we're going to go through all the filters, and if they are to be filtered by our new filter, we just set the value. So nested deep down here is this.view.filter, the name of the filter, set the value to whatever we've entered. And the final thing we have to implement is the query function, but since we're not actually modifying the query ourselves, we don't need to do this. Usually, if you were providing a new table to views, you'd have to make sure that the join is done to that table, and you could add a where clause to filter on that table. So just an example of that here, I've got a few cats over here by the artist of Abdo something, something, and then this cat has, the title has the word Abdo in it. So if I search for Abdo, should return both artwork with the artist of Abdo and the title of Abdo, which is happening there. So that's basically how to create a really simple views plugin. Does anyone have any questions on that section? Yes. You have the microphone? Or it gets recorded if you do it in the microphone.
You said that searched on either or the fields.
Yeah.
Did you set your filter up to do that?
Yeah, so in Views 3 is this new feature that you used to have to use a module called Views OR to achieve. But basically, you can do groupings on your filters. So my first three are ANDed together, and that group is ANDed with this OR group of title and artist. Yeah, sorry. If you have a look at this little grouping thing here. So title and artist aren't exposed filters, they're just regular filters, and my populate filter is exposed, and that just populates these two filters here. Does that make sense? Cool, any other questions? Okay, we'll continue on. Okay, this is a kind of a cool new feature. You can use a view as a form, so you can bulk edit nodes, and this has only been around since June last year or so. And it depends on other modules to implement field handlers to achieve this. So views bulk operations is probably the biggest example of this. Has everyone used views bulk operations? Hands? Yeah, for those who haven't, I've just got a quick demo of it. Basically, you can replace your content listing and your user listing or anything else that you wanted to with views. So this is just a list of all my nodes, and using the new form thing that's in views, you can add form fields. So here it's just adding a checkbox field. So I can grab these three, and then you get a submit button down up the top somewhere within operation. So I just want to make these three nodes sticky. So that's views bulk operations. So what we're going to do is provide a price edit field so we can edit the price of each of the artworks. And I've got a demo of it here. So it's just, this is just a view, and this field is obviously editable here. So again, we have to implement Hook Views API and Hook Views data. The only difference with the data is now we tell it that we're creating a field handler rather than a filter. And I sort of showed you a demo. I'll just show you it in action. I can change this node to $5,000. Save that. That's changed. If we view the actual node, price here has changed down to 5,000. So this is a really simple implementation of it, and it's only working on one field. It would obviously be a lot better if there was a generic solution where you could edit any of the fields of the node, but just for the purpose of brevity, I've just done it on one field here. So Hook Views data, again, basically we're saying our handler is called DDU demo handler price edit. And then implementing the field handler, there's basically two views related functions, and then just your standard form validate and form submit functions that if you've used form API before, you're probably used to those. So the render function, when the field is going to be displayed on the website, it just returns a token, which again is a HTML comment, and that gets replaced later with a form API element. And you define the form API element in views_form. I already showed that. Okay, so your class, once again, it extends views handler field, and you start with the render function, and that you just return that string, and views automatically replaces that with whatever is in views form here. So basically, I'm going through all the results, and I'm saying I want to show a text field. The default value is going to be based on the value of another hidden field that I've created. I'm sure there's a much better way of doing it, but this is the easy, quick way of doing it. Or if that's not set, it's just going to be an empty string. Then when the form is submitted, it goes into the validate function, which just, you can define, here I'm saying that the value of the forms has to be numeric or empty. It can't be ABC or anything like that. If there is an error there, form set error will go and it will make the field red. I'll show you. If I go change this to something not numeric like that, that'll fail. The price must be numeric or empty. And then form submit here, all I'm doing is checking if the value of any of those fields has changed from its original value, and if it has, I'm going to load the node, so that's with node_load, grab the node ID, which I've got in another hidden field, change the value of the price field, and save it. And like I mentioned, it's kind of hacky because if you wanted to do it for all of the fields, you'd have to create another field handler for every single one. So I haven't seen any good sort of generic bulk field editors yet because this is a fairly new function. So if anyone is looking for something to do in their spare time, there's probably a good idea. I've also got this other contrib challenge. So a few people nodded, they said they've used the flag module before, but I think it'd be really cool if there was another module that integrated flag with that form, views form thing that I've just showed you. So basically, any flag that you've defined on your site, I think you should be able to just simply add it to the list of fields. So you'd have, featured here in a column here and just have a checkbox for whether that is flagged or unflagged. And then I could go and say, okay, the first 10 nodes here, I don't want flagged anymore. Come down and hit save. But as yet, that doesn't exist. And finally, I've just got some pointers on where to find documentation on the Views API, because you probably don't remember everything I've just said. And there's a lot more to it. I've only covered a small part of it. So when you download Views, there's a folder in there called docs, and that's got views.api.php. That's just a list of all the hooks that are available. Some of them have detailed descriptions of what they do and how you can use them, but some of them basically just say what the hook is, and I've tried to demonstrate some of those ones today because they don't really have good examples in the file. If you install the advanced help module, you get a whole bunch of information about how to use Views and Views UI, but down the bottom there's a section on the API, and that gives you some good demos on how to create plugins like what I've showed you today. And then obviously searching Drupal.org, IssueQ, and Google is another good place to find the Views API information. Although don't always trust what you find on Google, because a lot of people say, oh, I found this way where I can achieve this, but you really have to assess, is this the best way to do it? Which is the same with some of my demonstrations this morning. So Does anyone have any questions on any topics over here?
Yeah, in Drupal 6, I think Views had, or Views bulk operations had something where you could update multiple fields, and that seemed to be gone in 7. Is that the case?
I don't recall that. The way Views bulk operations worked has changed significantly, because before that view as a form thing existed, you had to create a view or a view style, which was a bulk operations style, whereas now you just add a bulk operations field. But I don't think you can run PHP, custom PHP or anything on a bunch of nodes, but I haven't seen if you have, 5 different text fields where you can edit in the one node.
I'm just wondering if you have your execution diagram sitting around somewhere.
Yeah, so the demo website that I've created is viewsapi.gloidigital.com.au, and on the right-hand side, I've got all the code that I showed today, which is on GitHub, a link to download the PowerPoint slides, and the actual diagram here. It's the Views execution process. Oh, that's really big. Yeah.
Yes. I believe the missing module, which I've used successfully a couple of times before, is editable fields.
Yeah.
Is there a problem with that? I've used that for making a view, and then say you're looking at a list of gallery items, and I can update the comment, the author, the price, all in one page without using Views bulk operations or this one.
Yeah.
It's in Drupal 6, and I see an alpha in Drupal 7, and
Yeah.
I've had lots of luck with it.
Okay, I've tried the Drupal 7 version of it, and it doesn't have like a submit at the end of the screen, so it's got an Ajax submit on every single field, and that can be kind of annoying, because let's say you go into the form and you make 10 changes, and then you realize that you messed one up, you can't go back and edit it because you don't know what the value was. There's no sort of like confirmation step. So yeah, another good idea would be to improve that module. There's an issue in the issue queue for editable fields to have it as a single save button at the bottom of the view rather than Ajax save.
I think we've got time for one more question. Was there someone else over here somewhere? Was that it? Fantastic. Well, we're pretty much out of time, so thank you so much, Michael.